I was trapped in the basement while my mother-in-law left with my husband. "You're not needed," she said. I escaped and called the police. They returned to learn they were arrested for leaving me in danger. So picture this. I'm married to this guy for 3 years, right? Love him to pieces, but his mom, total nightmare from day one. We're talking about the kind of woman who shows up unannounced, rearranges my kitchen cabinets, and tells me I'm seasoning the chicken wrong. Classic mother-in-law from hell situation, no cap. Last Tuesday started normal enough. I was home doing laundry in our basement because our washer's down there in this weird setup the previous owners left. The basement's partially finished, but still feels like a dungeon with these concrete walls and one tiny window that barely lets in light. My husband Jake was upstairs getting ready for work when his mom shows up. Didn't even knock, just waltzed right in with her spare key. I hear them talking upstairs while I'm sorting whites from darks, and something in their voices made me pause. They're whispering, which is weird because this woman's never whispered a day in her life. Usually she's loud enough to wake the neighbors 3 houses down. Then I hear footsteps coming toward the basement door. Heavy ones, definitely Jake's work boots. But when the door opens, it's his mom standing there with this look on her face that I'd never seen before. Cold, like ice cold calculating. "Come up here," she says. "We need to talk." I'm thinking, okay, here we go again with some lecture about how I'm not good enough for her precious son. But when I get to the top of the stairs, Jake's standing there with his overnight bag packed and his Carhartt jacket on. "Where are you going, babe?" I ask, genuinely confused. That's when his mom drops the bomb. "Jake's coming with me for a few days. You're not needed right now." I'm like, excuse me? What does that even mean? Jake won't make eye contact, just stares at his Nike sneakers like they're the most fascinating things he's ever seen. "Wait, hold up," I say. "What's going on here? Jake, talk to me." His mom steps between us. "He's made his decision. You've been nothing but trouble for this family. Now I'm getting heated because who does she think she is?" "Jake, are you seriously letting your mom speak for you right now?" He finally looks up, and I swear I don't recognize the person staring back at me. "I think we need some space," he mumbles. Before I can process what's happening, his mom's pushing me back toward the basement stairs. "You can think about what you've done down there." And here's where it gets completely unhinged. She literally shoves me down the first few steps. I catch myself on the railing, heart pounding, looking back up at her like she's lost her mind. "Are you insane?" I shout. She slams the door and I hear the lock click. "Wait, lock? Since when does our basement door lock from the outside?" I'm banging on it, yelling for Jake. But all I hear is their voices getting fainter and then the front door slamming. I'm standing there in my basement like some character in a horror movie, trying to wrap my head around what just happened. The door's solid wood, old-school craftsmanship that doesn't budge no matter how hard I push. The lock sounds heavy-duty, definitely not original to the house. That's when it hits me. They planned this. Jake's mom had been in our house before, when we weren't home. She had that lock installed. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. I check my phone. 2 bars, thank goodness. I try calling Jake, but it goes straight to voicemail. Same with calling him again. And again. The basement's getting colder, and I realize they turned off the heat. It's March in Wisconsin, still freezing at night. There's no food down here, just my husband's old workout equipment and boxes of Christmas decorations. I'm pacing around, trying to figure out my next move, when I remember that tiny window. It's maybe 2 feet wide and sits right at ground level. I've never really looked at it closely before, but now it's looking like my ticket out of here. Update. So I'm literally trapped in my own basement by my mother-in-law and husband. The window might be my only way out, but it's tiny and I'm not exactly petite. Should I try to squeeze through or wait and hope they come back? What would you do in this crazy situation? The window's stuck solid, painted shut probably decades ago. I find an old screwdriver in Jake's toolbox and start chipping away at the paint. My hands are shaking from cold and adrenaline, but I keep working at it. After what feels like forever, the window finally budges. It opens maybe 8 inches before hitting something on the outside, probably debris or overgrown bushes. But 8 inches might be enough if I can angle myself right. I'm not gonna lie, squeezing through that window was like something out of an action movie. Picture a person trying to mail themselves through a slot barely big enough for a large envelope. I scraped up my arms pretty good on the window frame, tore my favorite hoodie, and landed face first in a pile of wet leaves and old snow. But I was out. Free. Standing in my own backyard at like 2 in the afternoon, looking at my house from the outside and realizing how messed up this whole situation was, I brush myself off and head straight to my neighbor Mrs. Peterson's house. She's this sweet old lady who's always bringing me cookies and asking about my garden. When she opens the door and sees me covered in dirt and leaves, her face goes white. "Honey, what on earth happened to you?" I give her the quick version and asked to use her phone to call the police because my cell died during the Great Basement Escape. She's making me hot chocolate while I'm on the phone with dispatch, explaining that my husband and his mother locked me in my basement and left. The officer who shows up is this younger guy, probably fresh out of the academy, and I can tell he's trying to figure out if this is some kind of domestic dispute or what. I show him the scratches on my arms, the torn hoodie, explain about the new lock on the basement door. "So your husband was involved in locking you in the basement?" he asks. "He didn't physically do it, but he stood there and watched his mom do it. Then they both left me there." The officer's taking notes, asking about how long I was trapped, whether I felt I was in danger. And honestly, yeah, I did. No heat, no food, no way out except through a window the size of a postage stamp. If I hadn't gotten out on my own, who knows how long they planned to leave me there. He calls for backup and they document everything. The basement, the lock, the window I climbed through. They take photos of my scrapes and torn clothes. The whole thing feels surreal, like I'm watching someone else's life fall apart. Around 6 that evening, Jake and his mom roll up in her Toyota Camry like they're coming back from a nice day of shopping. The looks on their faces when they see 2 police cars in the driveway, priceless. Jake gets out first, looking confused. What's going on? Why are the cops here? His mom stays in the car, probably realizing this might not go the way she planned. The officers approach them calmly, but I can see they mean business. Are you Jacob Martinez? Yeah, that's me. Is my wife okay? What happened? The audacity of this guy acting like he's concerned about me after leaving me locked in a basement all day. Sir, we need to speak with you about an incident involving your wife being trapped in your basement. Jake's face goes through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, realization, panic, and then this look like he's trying to figure out how to spin this. Trapped? She wasn't trapped, she was just... We had an argument and she went downstairs to cool off. With the door locked from the outside? The officer asks. That's when Jake's mom finally gets out of the car and she's got this whole innocent act ready to go. Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. We simply went out for the day. If she was in the basement, it was her choice. I'm watching this from Mrs. Peterson's front porch and I want to scream. The nerve of this woman lying to the police like they're idiots. But here's the thing about evidence. It doesn't lie. The officers had already documented the basement setup, the new lock, the tiny window I had to escape through. They had photos of my injuries and my torn clothes. Update. The police are here and my husband and mother-in-law are trying to play innocent, claiming I chose to be in the basement. The evidence tells a different story though. What do you think happens when cops find out someone's been lying to them about trapping another person? One of the officers walks over to me. Ma'am, would you be willing to press charges for unlawful imprisonment? I look across the street at Jake, this man I married who I thought loved me. He's talking rapidly to the other officer, hands waving around, probably spinning some story about how this is all a big misunderstanding. Yes, I say. I want to press charges, the officer nods. We're going to need you to come to the station to give a full statement, but based on what we've documented here, we have probable cause for arrest. Jake's mom finally loses her cool when she hears the word arrest. This is ridiculous. She's just trying to cause trouble for our family. Ma'am, confining someone against their will is a crime, regardless of your relationship to them. They handcuff Jake first. He's looking at me with these puppy dog eyes like I'm supposed to feel bad for him. Babe, come on. You know I didn't mean for this to happen. You watched your mom lock me in our basement and then left me there for 6 hours, Jake. What exactly did you think was going to happen? His mom's arrest is more dramatic. She's yelling about how this is all my fault, how I've ruined her son's life, how she knew I was trouble from the beginning. The officers are patient but firm, getting her into the squad car while she's still ranting. Mrs. Peterson squeezes my shoulder. Honey, you did the right thing. That was not okay what they did to you. The next few hours are a blur of paperwork and statements at the police station. I call my sister who drives down from Milwaukee, takes one look at me, and immediately starts planning my exit strategy from this marriage. You're staying with me until you figure out what you want to do, she says. No argument, just sister solidarity. Jake calls me from jail that night, his one phone call, and he uses it to try to convince me to drop the charges. Baby, please, this is getting out of hand. My mom was just trying to help us work things out. By locking me in a basement, she didn't mean for it to go that far. And I never wanted you to get hurt, you know that, right? But here's the thing, I don't know that anymore. The man I married wouldn't have let his mother lock me anywhere. The man I married would have stood up for me instead of packing a bag and walking away. Jake, I climbed through a window to escape from my own house. Do you understand how crazy that is? He's quiet for a long time. Then, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was confused, and my mom was saying all these things about how you were trying to turn me against my family, and I didn't know what to do. So you did nothing, while I was trapped in a basement. The trial happens faster than I expected. Jake's mom hired some expensive lawyer who tried to argue that it was all a misunderstanding, that I had gone to the basement voluntarily and they simply forgot I was there. But the prosecutor had photos of the new lock, documentation of my injuries, testimony from Mrs. Peterson about my condition when I escaped. The evidence painted a clear picture of what really happened. Update. The trial's wrapping up, and the defense is claiming they forgot I was in the basement. With all the evidence stacked against them, I'm wondering what the jury's going to decide. Do you think justice will actually be served here? Jake pled guilty to unlawful imprisonment and got 6 months in county jail plus probation. His mom fought the charges and got a year in prison plus 3 years probation. The judge called their actions calculated and cruel. During sentencing, Jake finally looked me in the eye. I'm sorry, he said. I should have protected you instead of letting my mom control the situation. I understand if you can't forgive me. His mom, on the other hand, glared at me like this was all still somehow my fault. Even facing prison time, she couldn't admit she was wrong. I filed for divorce while Jake was serving his sentence. He didn't contest it. Maybe jail gave him time to think about what he'd done, or maybe he finally realized his mom had poisoned our marriage beyond repair. I'm living in Milwaukee now, working at a marketing firm, and dating a guy who thinks the story of how I escaped through a basement window is the most badass thing he's ever heard. He also happens to think mother-in-laws should mind their own business and that husbands should always have their wives' backs. My new apartment has huge windows and no basement. I made sure of that. Jake gets out next month, but I haven't heard from him His mom still has another 6 months to serve. I heard through mutual friends that Jake's planning to move across the country when his probation's up, start fresh somewhere his mom can't follow. Sometimes I think about that day, trapped in my own basement, realizing that the people who were supposed to love and protect me had literally locked me away. It was terrifying and heartbreaking, but it also showed me exactly who I was married to. I'm not the same person who used to let my mother-in-law rearrange my kitchen cabinets. I'm not the woman who made excuses for her husband's inability to stand up to his mom. I learned that day that I'm stronger than I thought, resourceful enough to save myself, and worth more than being someone's afterthought. The basement incident, as I call it now, was the worst day of my marriage, but also the beginning of my real life. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us end up being exactly what we needed to find our way to something better. And honestly, climbing through that tiny window was nothing compared to climbing out of a marriage that was suffocating me just as much as that locked basement ever could.